If you're a design student, there's a specific moment when you realize that this path is different from anything you've ever done before. It's not usually when you see some brilliant piece of work. It's not even when you first learn to sketch. No, it happens in a very specific place. You're sitting there, in the studio, and it just hits you. This is not a classroom. You know the scene. The walls are just covered in sketches. Every desk is a mountain of half-finished prototypes. Your instructor is wandering around, stopping here and there, asking tough questions. Everyone looks incredibly busy, but if you look just a little closer, you can see that everyone is also struggling, each in their own little bubble of chaos. And that's when it really sinks in. This environment plays by a completely different set of rules. So what is a design studio, really? Why does it feel so rewarding one minute and so utterly draining the next? And what is it actually designed to train in you? Well, to figure that out, we have to start with why it feels so different from any other learning environment you've been in. A lot of people mistake the studio for just a classroom with better tools, but that completely misses the point. See, in a normal classroom, your learning can be private. If you don't get something, you can just stay quiet. If you're not prepared, you can usually fake it. You just have to hand in a final answer by the deadline, and any big problems might not show up until much later. The studio? It's the exact opposite. Your entire process is out in the open. Your sketches, your models, all of it. And maybe most importantly, when you're stuck, your stagnation is visible. Problems don't wait to be discovered, they're seen right away. So, ultimately, the power of the studio isn't the building or the fancy equipment. It's a system. It's a system designed to force you into this constant cycle of being seen, being checked, and being corrected. It's an environment where hiding is basically impossible. And that cycle, that constant exposure, is exactly what makes the studio feel so intense. If you've ever felt like the whole thing is uniquely stressful, well, you're not wrong. That feeling is a core part of its design. It's not a place for you to just sit back and absorb information. It's an active pressure test. Think of it less like a classroom and more like a gym. But you're not there to train your muscles. You're there to train your judgment, your resilience, and your ability to take feedback. You're building the mental muscle to function and make decisions, even when you're completely surrounded by uncertainty and you just don't have all the answers. And this brings us to a huge paradox of the studio. You're given these wide open problems, right? The direction is yours to figure out. The concept is yours to create. On paper, that sounds amazing, so liberating. So why does that freedom so often feel like a crushing weight? Because freedom is heavy. When there's no single right answer, all of that responsibility falls squarely on your shoulders. You have to define the problem. You have to choose the direction. And you have to live with the consequences of those choices, for better or for worse. This weight, this responsibility, it leads us straight to the studio's most valuable and probably most difficult function. Here's the truth. Design is almost impossible to learn just from lectures. You can understand all the concepts in theory, but the real hard part is taking all those little pieces of knowledge and putting them together into a solid judgment, a decision that actually works. The studio's whole high-exposure, high-feedback setup forces you to do just that. It demands you take what's floating around in your head and make it real. You can't just think you have a good idea. You've got to draw it out, build a quick prototype, talk someone through the logic, pin it up on the wall. The second an idea takes on a physical form, it can be examined, it can be critiqued, it can be improved. And at that point, you can no longer kid yourself about whether it really works. But this environment of total exposure has a pretty big risk. The fact that everyone's work is constantly visible introduces the studio's biggest psychological hazard: comparison. And it's almost impossible to avoid, right? You look over and see someone whose progress seems way faster than yours. Their drawings are cleaner, their models are more put together, their presentations are clearer. In those moments, the studio stops feeling like a learning space and just turns into a giant anxiety amplifier. So the real challenge in the studio isn't just finishing the project. It's learning how to keep your own pace and your own focus in a place where you can see everything everyone else is doing. The test is whether you can see what others are doing, maybe even learn from it, without letting their progress totally derail yours. It's this delicate dance of seeing others without giving into comparison. Okay, so how do you actually navigate this? How do you survive and maybe even thrive in this pressure cooker? Well, this brings us to the single most practical strategy for your time in the studio.
One of the biggest mistakes students make, and it's a really common one, is treating the studio like it's a showroom. They think they have to wait until their work is more finished, more polished, more perfect before they show it to anyone. So they hide their process because they don't want to look bad or face tough questions. But this instinct to protect yourself is incredibly dangerous. Think about it. The later a problem is discovered, the more it costs to fix it. A lot of students burn out not because they aren't talented, but because they let a fundamental flaw in their project stay hidden for way too long. The best survival strategy, then, isn't to be perfect. It's to get yourself into a correctable state as early and as often as you can. When you start to see it that way, you realize the studio isn't just testing the quality of your final project, it's testing something way deeper. It's testing your ability to face uncertainty without running away, your ability to handle being exposed without shutting down, your ability to manage comparison without losing your own voice, and, maybe most of all, your willingness to welcome correction as a tool for growth.
And yeah, these things are tiring, they're uncomfortable, but this is exactly where real design skill is forged. So if you're struggling in the studio right now, don't just jump to the conclusion that you're not cut out for this. You might just be right in the middle of the most essential and ultimately the most valuable part of your entire design education. So I'll leave you with a question to think about, whether you're in the studio right now or you're looking back on it years later. What did you dislike most about that environment? And now, looking back, what are you most grateful for? Thinking about both sides of that coin might just help you see what it was all really for.